It is 10 years since the beloved Universal Studios Florida attraction, Jaws the Ride, closed for good, and we are going to celebrate it. This is episode 488 of the Unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Hello, everyone. We are here to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the closure of the opening day attraction, Jaws. And to help me do that, I have my team, Tracy.
Hello, everyone.
And Lee.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome aboard, everyone. This is Amity 6.
This is Base. You're clear for departure, Amity 6. Have a good trip.
10-4. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome aboard Captain Chris's Amity Boat Tours, the best and only scenic cruise on the island. My name is Lee, and I will be your skipper today as we visit the actual spots where back in 1974, that bad old shark Jaws devoured those poor innocent islanders. Now, our first item of interest on your port side is the home of our very own former Chief of Police, Martin Brody. Well, Brody really did blow up that shark and became a legend in his own time. Roy Scheider played him in the movie they made of Our Little Shark episode. Now, how many of you have seen the film Jaws? Lucky you. You got to watch the film. We had to live it.
Mayday! Mayday! Something's out there. I don't know. Good Lord! Huge! It's going under the...
Amity 6 to base. Did you copy that transmission? It sounded like Thomas on Amity 3. Over.
10-4. We copy. You can't be too far as he was headed back in. We're picking up his distress signal now. Keep an eye out for him. I'll call Chief McNeil. Base clear.
I can't believe this. What happened? Amity 6 to base. Amity 3 is sinking out by the lighthouse, and I don't see any survivors, and I don't know what could have done this except a shark!
Amity 6? Repeat that?
Shark! The biggest one I've ever seen! Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh! He's going under the boat! Base, what should we do?
Try the grenade launcher. Over.
Wait, you mean these things are loaded? Shoot! Missed again. Come on, let's get out of here. This is Amity 6. Tell Chief McNeil we're going to pick up Thomas and get out of here.
Please welcome aboard the boat, Jaws superfan, Mr. Thomas J. The J stands for Jaws, Wagner.
Hello, Thomas.
What's up, guys?
Welcome aboard. Quick, get on. Okay, let's get out of here before that shark comes back.
Amity 6, this is Chief McNeil. I'm on my way and I'll be there in 10 minutes.
10 minutes? We'll be shark bait in 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm on the gas dock. Pick me up.
We'll be right there. Quick, get in.
Please welcome on board the man that literally wrote the book on the attraction, Mr. Dustin McNeil.
Hey, Dustin.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back onto the show.
Okay.
Look, you know me, I love a bit of acting on a show, and I wasn't even going to do that, and it was Thomas actually sent me the script for the show when we were discussing this, and I was like, you know what, hell, I'm going to do it.
It's all your fault, Thomas.
It was worth it. It was worth it.
Oh, it's always fun.
You got to have that spiel somewhere in the show.
You
I agree.
definitely do. And the British accent just killed it. And by killed, I mean a good kill,
Yes.
right? Okay.
I hope so.
You know me, I get into these things.
All right.
I got a lump in my throat hearing that. That's the closest I've felt to being on the ride in 10 years.
I'm sorry, Dustin. I don't know your entire background, but you have like the perfect voice for voiceovers ever. When you started speaking, I was like, oh my God, this should be his career.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you.
There you go.
So
That is awesome.
Lee, when we do that ASMR episode, we know who to call.
Right? Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
That got
All
weird
right.
fast.
As we're here to pay homage to the 10-year anniversary of Jaws, we are going to start off talking to everyone about their first memories of riding the attraction and their initial thoughts. All righty. Thomas, why don't you tell us your first memory of riding the attraction?
Riding the attraction was actually in 1995.
Wow.
I was in the park back in 1990, but unfortunately, the Jaws attraction was closed. So the first time I actually did ride it was in 1995. And back then, tickets to the park was like $30.74.
Wow.
So
That'd be
it was,
so awesome.
yeah, it was quite different back then. But leading up to the actual attraction, the first thing that I remember was the Amity Village, where they were celebrating 4th of July every day there. And the 70s music that was playing. And I remember one of my favorite songs by Chicago, Saturday in the Park. And they even have a lyric in there referencing the 4th of July. So it was very cool that that song played prominently throughout the whole center of Amity. And I remember the carnival games and the hot dog stand. And it was just like nice and sunshine. And I know we use the word immersed a lot in the theme park world, but I was like totally in Amity. And it was like being thrown back in time to the 70s. So the attraction itself, the first thing I remember is the queue, where you actually went through and saw like props from the movie. I remember there was Chief Brody's Amity police jacket that was there in glass, and Quint's harpoon gun,
Cool.
and the $3,000 reward sign for the capture of the shark. And I was like, was this actually in the film? Was this in the film? And I remember taking photos and all that of it. And the actually getting on the ride was an experience because I didn't know where to sit. I remember the first time I sat like toward the middle of the boat, and I had people to my left, people to my right. And as soon as the music started playing, it was Out to Sea. And it was not like the John Williams Out to Sea music that we know, but it was like a happy version of it. It was like, dun, 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 dun. And
Yes.
it's like, oh, well, that's a weird way of hearing a Jaws song or a Jaws theme. So it was like already a happy experience. And I rode with my bro. My older brother was there with me. And when they announced this is the home of Chief Brody on your port side, and I remember looking over there, and I said to my bro, that's not really his house. Come on. Because we've actually been to Martha's Vineyard to see the real house, and we know watching Jaws a million times that, that's not his house. But, God bless Universal. They tried. And so I remember that. And then after the Amity 3 was sinking, the first appearance of the dorsal fin, I mean, I've never seen, thankfully, a shark in real life, but here it is, a dorsal fin, and it's coming through the water, and it's coming close to the boat. And for someone whose number one film is Jaws, that was like the most awesomest thing, seeing it in real life, not just videos or pictures, but real life. And I remember went underneath the boat, and I never looked at the right side of when the shark popped up again with the dorsal fin, because I was so distracted, because to my left side was the freaking orca. And so I'm like, that's the orca. Look at the orca. Look at orca. So the first few times, and I even looked at videos that we took back in 95. And whenever it was that time for the orca on the left, I always like moved the camera and focused on the orca. So for like the longest time, I didn't even look or see the shark fin on the right-hand side of the boat, because there's the freaking orca right in front of me with the yellow barrels and everything.
That's it. Thomas's videos on YouTube, the ride through Jaws from 1995. So if you watch it, it's just all the stuff from the film. You can't actually see the ride itself.
And then you're going inside the boathouse. And like I said, the first time I rode it, I was in the middle. So my view was distracted from other people's heads and all that. So I really didn't see the shark for the first time until after the boathouse, where they're saying like, where is he? Where is he? And then he pops up. And that was my first time seeing like the great white shark in person. This is before YouTube videos and before iPhones where you see pictures all over the place.
Yeah.
I had no idea what to expect the first time I rode it. That's one of the coolest things is, well, nowadays, if you want to see a ride, there's always YouTube videos before.
Yeah.
And it takes away from the ride experience your first time.
It does, you're right. Like, I know from doing this podcast, like, we have to be up on stuff. So, like, I've watched God knows how many POVs of Velocicoaster at this point, just because if we're going to talk about it and I'm going to interview the people that have done it, we have to know as much as we can about it. So, yeah, it does take away from it a little bit.
It does,
Right.
but I can tell you right now, you're still going to be
Oh, I
blown
know.
away
Oh,
when you
yeah.
read that
Oh,
ride
I'm
for the
sure.
first time. You can watch as many point of views on that, and it's still going to be
I'm
like,
sure.
what
Yeah.
the hell just happened?
Good.
Thomas, I don't know. I don't think I heard you say, but how old were you when you were there for the first time?
1995. Born in 72, 82. I didn't know I had to do math. 92.
Sorry.
20.
Da, da, da.
23.
So you weren't a child.
23.
Okay, gotcha.
23. Yes, fresh out of high school. Almost. So yeah, saw the shark come out of the water for the first time, and if it's sunny outside, and if you catch it just right, when the water splashes and the sun is shining, there's always a rainbow that
Yes.
forms. And I remember in my videos, there's always that rainbow, little sparkle, right when Jaws comes out. And forgive me for calling the shark Jaws. I know his name isn't Jaws, but that's what I call him.
Yeah.
Okay. But when Jaws comes out and all that. And then I remember the heat from the explosion from the gas dock. That heat that I felt for the first time, I felt like I was on fire.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, this is the first time I've been at a theme park where I experienced things like that. I've been at Six Flags many a times, but we don't have those things at Six Flags.
Yeah.
A theme park and all that. The heat, I felt like I was on fire. I had to look away because I felt like my face was going to melt like the guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark at the end. But I remember that heat, and every time I feel that heat in other attractions to this day, I'm always thinking about, like the Spider-Man fireball. I always go back to Jaws, and, that's what it feels like doing all that. And then the music changed to, I think it's called Out to Sea was when it began. And then Sea Attack #1, where it's like dun 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 dun. So that's a very familiar theme. And now it's like I'm actually like in the movie, because in the movie, when you hear that song for the first time, that theme, that's right when Quint says 3 tons of them, and then they start getting prepared and all that, and that means stuff is about to go down. All right. So hearing that music really puts you back in the movie. And when the Jaws bit the cable and I saw him for the other time, I said, okay, the next time I ride the ride, I've got to get closer to that side, left-hand side. And we, after a few times, the best seat on that attraction, the second and third and fourth time that we rode it, was the row 5 on the left-hand side. And if you sit right there, Jaws, when he bites the cable, is going to be right in front of you.
That
So
will
always
that
make
will
sure-
play into my memories later, because I am a terrible father, by the way.
And then he gets roasted, and then the happy Out to Sea music plays again when you're going around. And I remember when I got off, it was the biggest smiles on my face and my brother's face, and not just us, but looking around the kids and the other passengers on the boat. It was just all smiles. And it's like, wow, I have never experienced anything like that in my life. My #1 film, and it was like I was actually in the movie. I was a part of it. And like Universal said back in the day, ride the movies. I rode my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't wait to do it again and again and again and again.
They just don't make attractions like that anymore, anywhere.
No.
No, you're right.
And it's so sad. But we'll get onto that later.
Yeah.
Just to preface, not preface because we're after this, is post-face a word? Like, Thomas is the biggest fan. He's posted, I think, on your Instagram at some point, Thomas, the amount of Jaws merchandise you own, like, covers an entire room's floor. It is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been collecting since like I was a child. And like I said, it's the #1 film of all time, in my view. And we'll talk about it later, about how iconic it is to this day, all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of Jaws. It's if my Secret Santa at work gets me, they're like, okay, something Jaws.
Yeah.
I'm like the most simplest person.
Yeah.
And
Oh, Superman.
at Christmas time, birthday time, it's like Jaws stuff, Jaws stuff,
Yeah.
Jaws stuff, Jaws stuff.
I have to ask if your wife supports this obsession or if she like rolls her eyes as she walks past that room.
No, I think I know Lynette enough. Yes, she completely
Is it what she
endorses all of
facilitates?
it. Yes, I think she does.
Enabler.
Yeah, she's-
Okay.
She supports it, just like I support her love for Chris Hemsworth.
Yes.
You know, and Thor and all that.
Okay.
You know.
Fair enough.
Having seen her Christmas present from Thomas this year, yes, he really does endorse that.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Dustin, what was your first memory of riding the attraction?
My first memory was late 1993. I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and back in the day, Universal had these huge, lavish brochures with fold-out panels that highlighted every attraction in the park. I mean, glorious full-color artwork. It wasn't just like some shrimpy little map that you get now. It was like a magazine almost.
Wow.
And the Jaws spread, the ride had just reopened, and the Jaws spread was huge with that classic artwork of the, shark basically about to swallow the boat whole. The proportions were not even close to reality in that ad, but everyone has seen that ad, I think. Jaws was my favorite movie. I was like a kid. It was my favorite movie, and my parents were so disappointed to learn that when we got to the park that I wasn't going to ride the Jaws ride.
What?
They no. I loved that movie, but I wasn't dumb enough to get on that boat. This is like threat assessment of a 7-year-old looking at the size of the pictures and stuff. And it took a lot of like coercing. I was eventually bribed. They were like, what if we give you some money to spend at the gift shop when you get off the ride? Because used to, it wasn't a little merch cart. Used to, it was Quint's Nautical Treasures, which was a walk-in store across from the ride that had so much cool stuff. And so they gave me like, I think $20 or $30 to spend there. And that was enough to get me on the ride, which was terrifying. I loved it. And of course, it became a family thing. Every time we went back, our annual trip had to do the Jaws ride once by day and then once by night for Shark in the Dark.
And that kills me. We never did Shark in the Dark, and it kills me because I would have adored that ride at night.
I don't think we ever got a chance, did we?
No.
And, I love that Thomas just mentioned, or someone brought up merchandise. By the time the ride was over, there was a lot of like generic shark merchandise that was really half-assed. Universal was not trying with the merch. But back in the day when the ride opened, man, there was a lot of really cool ride-specific merchandise that you can find it on eBay now. But they didn't keep up the quality of the ride-specific merchandise like they did back then. I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Tracy's you've still got your, haven't you, the Amity swim team leaving the competition dead in the water. I love that T-shirt.
That's good, yeah.
And the handbag.
Yes, and your bag.
Yes.
Yeah, my experience was very similar to Dustin's. Because after hearing Thomas, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to sound like the biggest freaking chicken I know. But then Dustin led that up, so
Michelle,
I'm good now.
You are a chicken. We all know that. Everyone listening to this show knows how much of a chicken you are anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, fair enough. So, mine's very similar. I don't know the exact year. It was early 90s, though. I was around Chris's age, which was probably 10 or 11. So I should have been old enough to be a little bit braver, but I wasn't. But in my defense, I was and still am very terrified of sharks, like in general. And as a child, it was even worse. So although I watched the movie Jaws and it didn't terrify me, but for some reason the ride, I was like, no, oh my God. Like you see that, the ad that was everywhere that Dustin was talking about with the boat, with the giant Jaws eating the boat. I was like, oh my God, that's really going to happen. No, I'm not getting on this ride. So I don't know exactly what my parents did to get me on the ride, whether it was just coercion, like, Dustin, or if it was just force. I don't remember. But I do remember being absolutely terrified. However, I did ride it multiple times, so I think I got braver. But that scene where Thomas was talking about where the shark comes up and bites the cable and it's like right next to the boat, I thought I was gonna die. Like literally, this is it. I'm done. I'm not growing up. Like this is how I die, and I hated it. And I can remember like trying to crawl across my parents' lap to get away from the edge of the boat and I knew to never sit on the edge ever again. And that was pretty much my own. Yeah, leave it to Thomas.
Yeah, leave it to me.
Exactly. But I didn't get to ride it anymore after that. It was just that experience as a young child, because by the time I went back, it was gone. So, yeah.
Aww.
Wow.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yeah. We did, as family, we always went down to Florida in the summer for a trip, but we went to either beaches or did SeaWorld one year and then Disney one year. Like we didn't do Universal every single year. So by the time we got back, it was gone.
It's a shame we haven't got anyone on here who rode the original attraction before it was revamped, because that original attraction would have been so cool to have actually experienced.
Yeah.
If I could speak to something Michelle mentioned for a minute, now that we have 2 official chickens on the
I
show.
love it.
When I was at Universal in '93, and my parents are trying to convince me to ride Jaws, and they're trying to figure out what's scarier about the Jaws ride. Like, I had just done Confrontation with King Kong. They're like, why weren't you scared of the giant ape? And I said, well, we turned to the corner. I could see the giant ape from 100 feet away. I saw him a block away. Literally, I could see him far away. I had time to go, okay, that's cool. Jaws, he was always under the water. So, even though he's in, the sharks are in these very, very specific spots in the lagoon. They're always, they don't just free float around. When you look at the water, your imagination, especially as a child, that shark could be anywhere.
Yeah.
He could jump up at any time. You couldn't.
Exactly.
You couldn't see the threat. And so that's what made Jaws scarier to those of us who aren't as brave as the rest of you.
Right.
Although Confrontation got me too, only because we were hanging and it shook. Like, I don't know if it's just my memory as a child, but it felt like we were like really rocking big time and we were going to fall. So that really scared me too. I knew there wasn't a such thing as a giant ape, so I wasn't necessarily scared of the ape. I was scared of falling.
I love how Michelle makes that statement for everyone to go, you were scared of Confrontation? Really? I would never have guessed that.
I know, right? I was scared of everything. Like, what was the name of it? It wasn't Back to the Future. Body Wars or something like that?
Epcot. Was it
Epcot?
Yeah.
I remember them having to force me on even that ride. I was just sure it was going to be worse than my parents said it was. And so I was a big chicken.
Speaking of Confrontation real quick, I know that he had like banana breath and that you smelled bananas and all that. But of all the times I rode Jaws, I've heard that there's like a smell when the roasted shark comes up. Like, oh, it smells disgusting. Oh, but I've never smelt anything. Have you guys smelt like the roasted shark smell?
To be fair,
I vaguely remember smelling something awful. I don't know if it was just like the burning itself. I don't necessarily remember like a flesh smell, but I remember it stinking.
I just remember smelling the hydraulic fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think smelling something.
I think my olfactory senses are crap, because everyone says about the
we won't go into why.
The Halloween Horror Night smells every year, and I never smell them. But anyway.
You don't smell any of them?
No.
He's an idiot.
No.
He's got COVID.
Maybe the only one that jumps out from 29 was like the burning fire smell in Nightingales, and other than that, I couldn't tell you a single smell in any of those houses.
Who bangs on and on and on about dry ice and how it takes straight back to
No, I'm talking about the specific like poop smells they put in them or whatever it is. I never smell anything other than fog. And
you killed your own nose, that's why.
That's quite possible.
Well, we all know the greatest theme park smell of all time is, of course,
Horror Nights
E.T.
fog. No, it's Horror Nights fog.
Oh,
That's
I'll die on this hill.
I'll fight you all the way.
That's a close one. You might have to take a poll on that one, whether it's the ET or the fog.
Yeah. ET Forest.
Well, it may be the Cinnabon smell in Islands of Adventure. That might be the best.
Well, I mean, I might agree with you there, like. We're the weird ones, aren't we? Because we didn't ride Jaws for the first time until what? I think I was 26? 27?
I don't know how old you were.
And it was weird. Like, from our point of view, kind of going off what...
Did we not ride it the first trip?
Yes.
We did. So
because it was
2004.
closed in 2005 for a refurb.
2004 we rode it.
So Thomas kind of mentioned it earlier, like when he went, it's the first sort of proper theme park he'd been to. Like we'd only been to crappy
Bingo
theme parks
Land,
over here, and then the closest thing we'd been to a theme park was Portaventura over in Spain, which at the time was owned by Universal, but it still wasn't on the level of something like Universal Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure. And there's a big difference from going to a theme park over here compared to going to somewhere in America. And I love it, but my biggest memory of riding Jaws for the first time is at the end, call off the Marines, we're coming in, and everybody cheers.
Yeah.
Everybody's clapping. Over here, no.
Nothing.
No, it
Stiff
would be
upper lip.
deathly silence.
Yeah.
We are far too
But
British.
it's not now. Now we're
A little bit.
we're indoctrinated in the American way of doing things. We are cheering and whooping and hollering.
But it's like, oh, people are cheering. That's a weird thing. Like, I hear people who go to the theatre to watch movies and cheer at the end of it. And it's like, what the hell is that all about? Like, you don't get any of that over here because we're far too straight-laced in Britain. Oh, we couldn't possibly clap at the end of a movie. So, honestly, that's the thing that sticks in my brain is like, oh, this is awesome. You like really get into it and like it's an experience because everybody on that boat is coming off completely pumped and excited having gone through this journey together.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we grinned from start to finish the first time. Every time we've ridden that,
Fell in love
it was
with it.
just absolutely amazing.
Like, Tracy's going to divorce me. I am going to say I am not the biggest Jaws fan. I like the film. It's starting to show its age after the last time we watched it. But as far as an attraction goes, and this could kind of go into what we talk about later, what I love about what Universal do, and I preach this all the time, is if Disney had have done a Jaws ride, you would have been going through the movie, scene by scene. What I love about what Universal do is they take the movie you know and then come up with a completely separate story that's still very much the movie you love, but as an extension of what. So it's as if the story for the Jaws ride is that actually happened and you're going on a boat tour showing off the locations from the movie, but then the whole shark thing happens again. It's an extension of the story rather than just being like, you look at something like, I always go to Ariel Voyage Under the Sea Mermaid thing, whatever the hell it's called at Magic Kingdom.
The Little Mermaid.
I don't know what it's called. No, it has because I keep wanting to say Voyage of the Little Mermaid, but I think that's the show that was in Hollywood Studios.
Okay.
No one correct me because I'm not really bothered. And it is set piece. It is the movie in ride form, and I love that Universal go beyond that, and that's one of the things that makes Jaws really stand out.
If I could speak to what you just mentioned about the scene at the end where the skipper, says, "We're coming home," and everyone cheers. That is such a great moment for like a release of energy after the great adventure. And I think Universal has tried in a couple of other rides to replicate that feel, and it hasn't worked the same. Like, on the
Like Transformers.
World, the Forbidden Journey, at the end of the Forbidden Journey.
Yes.
Going back into the hall.
What is it? The bench comes back home and the whole cast of the movie is there clapping for you. But it's a screen and it's not the same kind of engagement. And so you don't feel the same sense of of celebration. That's what set Jaws apart. It was that human element. Same with Confrontation. You'll never get the same feel if you don't have an actor on the front of your ride vehicle experiencing it with you.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of get that on Fast and Furious, but everybody I think is cheering just because they're so glad it's over. So it's not quite the same, but there is some camaraderie there.
And like when at the end of Transformers, the team members are clapping.
Yes.
And, I feel so bad because I'm not clapping with them. It's like, okay, I don't feel anything on a ride like that.
Yeah.
You know what? Even to this day, people are always clapping at the end of Green Guts.
Yeah.
Have you guys experienced that lately?
Don't know. I haven't been on it for 2 years.
Every single time I ride it, like everybody in the car is clapping, like, "Woo, that was awesome!" So maybe a little bit, but it's still not the same as Jaws was.
No, but when you're coming back in, and you're all clapping and cheering, the people waiting to get on the boat after you, they also join in as well. So it's a huge effort on everybody's part.
And because it interacts with the land Jaws, we always used to go and get Nathan's hot dogs and sit on the benches.
Loved that.
Where that skipper boat came back in at that point. So we'd end up cheering with the people on the boat when they come back in as well.
Yeah.
So it's the whole cycle
really
of
is.
that ride.
I mean, for me as well, I mean, obviously my memories are virtually the same as yours anyway.
Well, non-existent because we're all farts now.
Speak for yourself.
You don't remember back that far, do you? Do you remember your first ride on it? No. No, you don't, do you? I don't.
Shut up.
And yet we've got people here who are like, I rode it when I was 12, back in 1993, and Thomas literally remembers the ride beat for beat.
Well, he does have it
So
on film,
tired.
so...
Are you done?
Go on.
Are you done? Now, I always knew that I loved the film. I loved the movie Jaws. I always knew it. Every time it was on the TV, didn't care what point it was at, I would watch it. That was my film. And it wasn't until I actually ended up riding the ride that I realised that it actually was my favourite film. And unlike Lee, my love for that film just grows every single time I watch it, and I would watch that every week.
Sounds like Beetlejuice there, and it gets better every damn time I watch it.
So don't listen to Lee because he's wrong.
I mean, I've been told that many times.
But yeah.
And 47 years later, after 1975, you still find things in Jaws whenever you view it that you never noticed before. There's always something, because now you're looking out in the backgrounds and all that, because you've seen the main story and the main characters and the main center of the film so many times. But now you're like, oh, I didn't notice that was there before. Oh, I didn't notice that was there.
Yeah.
It's always something new.
Exactly. Yeah, the ride just, I don't know how to put it.
For me, it's the I know we're not going on this, we talk about initial thing, but well, you've paused, so I'm going to jump in. It is the quintessential Universal Orlando attraction for me. It's like if you want to show what Universal used to be, that is the perfect example of it.
You know what's magical about Jaws that I think is something that now every ride that Disney or Universal does, they try to do, is how encompassing the storyline for the attraction was, because it actually began before you even entered the queue.
Yeah.
The story of the ride is that, hey, come take a tour of Amity. It's safe now because we caught the shark. Where's the shark we caught? Oh, it's out front in Amity Circle. You can take pictures with it. And so that storyline continues into the Q video, which I've always been madly in love with the Q video. How cheesy it is. All these town yokels telling you about how they disagree. You've got Mayor Vaughn telling you it's safe. We caught the shark. Come take a tour of Amity. All this. It's just, it's such a fun storyline that interacts with the movie, because within the storyline of the ride, Jaws the movie exists. It was based on their experience, which is kind of more clever and meta than I think most people give the ride credit for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
It's also strange when you look back to Universal Studios Florida in those days that like every other area in the park set up just an area that housed multiple attractions, whereas Jaws was housed in its own island themed entirely around itself. And it was a big area just to Amity, yet everywhere else was kind of sound stages and stuff. Yet they built Jaws in its own Amity land, when themed lands like that weren't really a thing. And you look at it now, that's what they all are. So when you look back at it now, it was ahead of its time in that way.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Taking a trip on memory lane there. So let's take a quick ad break and hear from the fabulous Mouse and Muggle Travel Company.
Have you taken a stroll down Diagon Alley and visited Gringotts Bank? Taken a ride through New York with Jimmy Fallon? Visited the Truffler Trees in Zeus Landing, or hung out with a real-life Transformer? No? Then what are you waiting for? At Universal Orlando Resort, there truly is an option for everyone. Or if you're leaning a little more towards pixie dust rather than ones and portions, Disney destinations around the globe await your arrival. No matter the adventure, our sponsors have you covered. Be sure to let the experts at Mouse and Muggle Travel Company take care of all your travel needs. earning the distinction of being an earmarked agency specializing in Disney destinations, as well as becoming one of the first to be named a U Preferred agency with Universal Parks and Resorts vacations. Mouse and Muggle Travel Company will ensure you receive top-rate customized service. Just visit mouseandmuggle.com to fill out a non-obligation quote request, or send your request to info@mouseandmuggle.com. Their team can take care of you no matter where in the world you go. With a flick of their wand and a little bit of pixie dust, the process will be so seamless. Some might even say it's simply magical.
Welcome back, everybody. So since we've talked about our memories and initial thoughts of the ride, now let's go on and discuss what made it such a beloved attraction and how it could have still been made relevant in today's Universal Studios Florida. And I believe Thomas foreshadowed this and said that he's got some good ideas for us.
So what made it a beloved attraction? Because it was based on a beloved movie. Like I was saying before, 47 years ago, Jaws came out, and it's just as popular today in 2022. There's Jaws merchandise all the time on Amazon that's coming out like every month, new things. When you go to Spencer's or Hobby Lobby or whatever store you go to, there's always new Jaws merchandise that's out there. I went to Walmart around Christmas time, and they have little aquarium pieces that you put in your fish tanks, and two of them were new, and it was like a Jaws head and Jaws attacking the orca.
That's cool.
And so it's like new Jaws stuff is coming out every day, it seems like. And what made it a beloved attraction is like what Lee mentioned before, it's one of a kind. There's no other attraction out there that is anything like that. And not just talking about the ride, but two versions of it, daytime and nighttime. It's like you go to Transformers, it's the same ride over and over and over and over again, or Spider-Man over and over again. But you have a daytime and a nighttime version because it's like outside, and you have that atmosphere. And like I said, it's one of a kind. And you're talking about also one of the most iconic movie posters of all time.
Yeah.
With the shark and Chrissy swimming, and the blue and the white and the red. It's like one of the most famous posters. Immediately when you think of movie posters, the Jaws poster is in everyone's top 5.
You only have to look at all the early promotional material. When I was a kid, looking back to like when we never ever thought I'd get to Orlando or Hollywood or wherever, Jaws was always. I always remember watching. I think it was either Different Strokes. I'm going to show my age now. Different Strokes or Knight Rider, where they went out to Hollywood and they went on the tram tour. And I always remember seeing Jaws, and it's just such a big part of Universal and Universal Orlando. You only have to look back to the annual pass holder magnet that they did last year, where they had E.T. and it had, I think it was Men in Black and Jurassic Park, and Jaws was part of it. And that they even did a Jaws pin for the anniversary of its closure, wherever it was a couple of years ago. They've never done that for Confrontation. They've never done that from Back to the Future or anything like that. It just shows you how much Universal know it's part of their history and how much the fans know it's part of their history.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yep. And it is still somewhat relevant. And I don't even know how, because like my daughter, who is almost 11, knows what Jaws is. She's never seen it, but she knows what it is and asks to watch it. But she doesn't know what Back to the Future is, but she knows Jaws. So, it's out there. It's still very prevalent in today's society. So,
which is weird, isn't it? It's strange.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why Jaws, unlike all the other Hollywood movies, has never been remade. And they're going to leave that film alone. You can make similar films like The Meg or your Sharknadoes or whatever funny things. That's going into like parody territory. Yeah. But a serious shark film, there's none of those out there. And that's why I think it's never going to be remade, because it stands by itself. It's a 10 out of 10 film. Like Jurassic Park, like E.T. You can't remake films like that.
No, I agree.
And it's funny how you don't hear people clamoring for Confrontation to come back yet. I know we've got Skull Island Reign of Kong in there, but how many times have they tried to make King Kong relevant throughout the years, and yet that attraction still. I mean, we never got to ride it, which I'm quite disappointed at. It would have been something I definitely want to ride, but it's never been looked at with the same love as something like Jaws has.
No.
Because I think Jaws, as you say, it was the perfect attraction. It had everything you needed, even though there was plenty of attractions like it, those team member driven attractions, like a Jungle Cruise, that type of thing. Jaws had it all, and it was perfect.
And the popularity of the attraction in today's society, you can just look at last year when Universal came out with all those face masks. Jaws kept on selling out the smalls and the mediums, the larges, whatever sizes. You couldn't find them anywhere. And like Lee said about the button that came out a couple years ago, the pass holders ate all that up. And it's like everything that's coming out that Universal is doing a lot of retro, going back to Retroland and all that since they celebrated their 30th anniversary. But the retro Jaws image is like all over the place now. Every time there's like a retro image come out, whether it be chocolate bars or T-shirts or posters or anything, it's iconic. Yeah. And like when I think of Universal, I think of Jaws and E.T. when I think of Universal Studios. That's the two things I think of. And yet over the years, now you can add Jurassic Park, you can add Minions, you can add the Fast and the Furious, but those are the two most things that come to mind is Jaws and E.T.
Yes. I wouldn't necessarily people would agree with your over Fast and Furious and Minions, Thomas, to be fair.
Well, definitely not The Rock right now. Dwayne Johnson wants no part of Fast and the Furious.
Yes, I saw that.
I think it shows you how much of a beloved attraction it is that they moved Bruce. They didn't get rid of him. They moved him. And how much traffic that photo op still gets. And then when they take him down for a refurb, everyone's on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram going, where's Bruce gone? Is he coming back? And it's like a big freak out when he's not there.
You know, on that subject, if you look back, when they closed the ride on, January 3rd, 2012, everyone came back to the park, and there was a massive fence that had been built overnight to block off the Amity section. The first couple of days, the fence actually covered the hanging shark so that you could see the top of it, but you couldn't go up and take pictures with it because the fence surrounded the hanging shark in front of the ride. Guest services received so many complaints, not that people couldn't ride the ride. I mean, they had those too, but that people couldn't even take pictures with the shark, that within, I think it was a week or two, they changed the fence so that it went behind the hanging shark so that people could still take pictures in front of the fence with the hanging shark. I mean, that's just for a photo op, and Universal was fielding guest complaints about that. I mean, and they reacted. They responded quickly and fortunately, in the right way by moving the fence and then eventually keeping the hanging shark. And I will say I'm always grateful that they kept it around because it's an important piece of that attraction. If we're not going to have the ride, let us at least keep Bruce.
And also, speaking of that, the location by Chez Alcatraz, and particularly the bartender Murph.
Yes.
God bless him. He is keeping the Jaws spirit alive with his ocean attack drinks, and he's just become like a phenomenon with there. And things like that with Murph, he's keeping it alive. He's doing his little shark attack, and the positioning of Bruce right next to that place with Murph is like a little entertainment section itself.
Yes. He has his own little cult following.
He really does. It's weird.
Yeah. It's cool.
It is.
I just wish I liked half the ingredients so I could actually have one of those, but...
I mean, I alluded
They're very yummy.
I alluded to a story earlier the first time we took the kids over. And it's funny, you talk about... So our experience hasn't been of us riding it younger.
No, we've had... Yeah.
Our experience has been riding it with our kids. And I think Jade was...
Which actually I think is more fun.
Jade was 5.
Evil.
And Raymond was 10.
Oh my God, 5?
Yes. And she never batted an eyelid on it.
This kid is made of steel.
But I will say, we went to get her on Men in Black, and when we told her there was aliens on it, she freaked out and we had to drag her on it.
And then she loved it.
Yeah, Jaws didn't care less. So, going back to what was said earlier, I put Raymond, I think we, not necessarily row 5, but it was definitely around the middle of the boat. Yeah. So Raymond, our oldest at the time, it was 10. You need to go and sit on the outside, sunshine, on the left-hand side, just there, that's all right. The first time that shark came up on that left-hand side, he has never pushed into me as hard as he did. That afternoon, I was howling. It was so funny.
That poor kid.
You're terrible. Lee.
He
You're
watched
terrible.
the film when he was about 9 and he cried for about 45 minutes
Hang on.
afterwards.
Every child cries when they see it for the first time.
We watched
It's
it.
a rite of passage.
You were like, oh, he's
My
not...
brother fell off the back of the couch. I have never let him live that down.
I kind of like, Tracy was like, I don't think he's old enough to watch it. Like, oh, he'll be fine. We'll put it
Yep.
on. So
Who
we
was
finished
right?
watching it. He went upstairs to get ready for bed. I went out and took the dog for a walk. I come back. Tracy sat on his bedroom floor, hugged in, bawling his eyes out. Bless him.
I told you. No,
I'm sure he appreciates you telling the world that story.
Oh, he won't care now.
He doesn't
He probably
listen.
doesn't listen to your podcast.
He doesn't. No. But it's just we've kind of said it. I've lamented so many times on this podcast, Tracy. You know how much I adore attractions with a live team member on it. It just changes an attraction.
It does.
The screen-based attractions now, like everyone, you'll complain about Fast and Furious, right? But at least we've got those pre-show rooms, and those pre-show rooms make that attraction different every time.
Yeah, I will give you that. Yeah.
But you ride a Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, or a Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts, or the Transformers, or Spider-Man, and they are the exact same ride every time you ride them. Yet you ride Jaws, and depending on the skipper you get, can make or break that attraction. But even if you get a skipper who's not fully into it, that means the next time you ride it and you get one who is, makes that ride so much better.
But you know what's incredible about the skippers is, people don't always realize how much is going on or went on when the skipper was doing their spiel, because the skipper is not only having to recite a lot of lines from a script and give that emotion and feeling, they're having to pretend to drive the boat.
Yes.
They're having to pretend to shoot the grenade launcher. They're having to time their spiel to interact with music cues and radio transmissions. And all the while, they're also having to keep one eye on the guests because they're responsible for guest safety.
Yep.
I mean, people now and then did go overboard on that ride and did, tourists aren't always the most well-behaved. And they're doing 10 things at once and timing it perfectly. There's a reason that the skippers would do 2 or 3 tours on a boat and then take a break and go do the queue or something, because it really took a lot out of them to do that ride over and over and over. There was a lot going on.
Yeah. And then you look back like Mike Aiello, the god that is Mike Aiello, who was a former Jaws skipper, that he I don't know whether he got bored or whether he just decided he wasn't going to, but he's like, I'm not going to stick to the script. And he ended up getting moved off Jaws because he went off script that much. That's like, we think you'll be better suited over here.
Like I was saying earlier, when I wrote it for the first time, something I forgot to mention was after we got off, I looked at my bro and I was like, I want to work here. I want to be a skipper. I want to live here. I want this to be my job. And when can we move to Orlando?
I think we've said that, haven't we?
Because just imagine that being a skipper and doing that and getting paid doing something that you love,
Would be awesome. Yeah.
It'd be so cool.
Yeah.
As far as relevance, how they could have made the ride relevant to today, I kind of fear that this type of attraction is going to at some point become extinct altogether.
I
agree.
Just because with the technologies that we have today with screens and 3D, 4D and all these things, those types of technologies bring it so... I mean, it's a screen, but it brings it to life and it really pulls you in a different way than an animatronic does. And so some of these old rides like Jurassic Park, River Adventure, for instance, I'm sure when that was built, everybody was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. But now you're like, wah, wah. Like those animatronics just don't have that same appeal now that we have all this newer technology.
And then, Michelle, Universal Studios Beijing says, hold my coffin.
Yes,
exactly.
they
And
did.
now you see that
That's
dinosaur
true.
attacking the Jeep coming from behind
Which
the
is
Jeep.
amazing. Oh my God, that is stunning.
I don't think I spoke for about 10 minutes after that.
I mean, you can see when we talked to Andy and Catherine about that park and I mentioned that bit to Andy, dude was like, dude. It was like, oh my God, you could see how amazing that bit was.
Desperate to
I
get
have
there.
not seen that.
Oh, go and watch
But
it,
I mean,
Michelle.
that
It's
stuff-
amazing.
Yeah. Well, and Disney, the D word has done some amazing things with animatronics as well, but that stuff costs so much more money
And
than
I think,
screens do.
I think
So
the biggest thing is, and Dustin, you'll probably attest to this with having done research behind the book, I don't necessarily think it comes down to as much of people not believing in the animatronics. It's a big part of it is reliability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it also goes back to the cost you guys were just discussing, because while Jaws was known as what's called a people eater in the industry, because at its best, at its maximum, that ride could do 2,700 people per hour, assuming that you had 6 boats in rotation with 50 odd dispatches per hour. But the costs were just crushing for the studio, and I feel sorry for Universal on that part of it, because it had costs that other rides didn't have.
Yeah.
The Spielers were expensive. The diesel to run the boats was expensive. The maintenance, the nightly maintenance was expensive. The natural gas for the fire effects was expensive.
Yeah.
The hydraulic fluid that the sharks drank like crazy was expensive. Everything was costly about that ride, even in spite of how many people it could entertain per hour.
yeah.
And then reliability, those sharks, Universal, as the years went on, it was so heartbreaking to see, especially at the end. The sharks, when the attraction opened, were so dynamic, and they jumped out of the water and thrashed and really did a lot. And over the years, they would move less, and they would be less dynamic, and they would not rise up quite as far. And if you don't really know what I'm talking about, for a great frame of reference, go look at a ride video from Universal Japan and see those sharks. They're incredibly well maintained. They leap out of the water. They're much more forceful and terrifying. By the end, our Jaws ride in Orlando, the sharks just kind of slowly came out of the water, and the mouth opened a little bit. It was still something cool, but it wasn't in its prime. Far from it, actually.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, here's a question. Obviously, being where the attraction is, they replaced it for the Wizarding World, which made sense when they were looking to join Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley up. If Jaws had have been where Men in Black was, do we still think that attraction would still be there today?
I say yes.
I think so, yeah.
I do.
Or where Fear Factor is, or used to be.
Yeah. I'm thinking they obviously got rid of it because that part of land made more sense to put Diagon Alley in, joining it with the Hogwarts Express. So if it hadn't have been there and it'd have been elsewhere.
Well, it wasn't just a matter of the size of the land that Amity occupied. When I was interviewing people for my book, some of the designers of the park back in the late 80s, they put Jaws in the back of the park so that it would pull people into the park for crowd flow. There's a reason that Jaws wasn't the first attraction. There's a reason you have the lightweight attractions up front. Like back then you had Hanna-Barbera and Alfred Hitchcock. And while those were great, those weren't your big e-ticket rides. They wanted to pull you further into the park.
Yes.
So, given the cost, if it was where Men in Black was, it's so far back in the park. That's where you want to draw people into to spend more time there. It might have still gotten the axe. And I keep saying that I was going to speak to what you said about reliability, and then I keep getting off topic. But it's always funny to me that on the very last ride of the Jaws ride, the night of January 2nd, 2012. The sharks were such divas when it came to reliability. Sometimes they would work. You never knew. The skipper never knew. Sometimes the shark would just not pop up, and the show had to go on. And in the afternoon hours of that last day, the kill shark that bites the cable died. It refused to come up. They couldn't reset it. They took the ride down for a couple of hours to see if they could bring it back online for the final shows. And sure enough, it didn't come back up. And it's almost like it was a great middle finger to the park for killing the ride. Like the shark was refusing to perform its final bow. But reliability, I mean, even in its last run through, the ride didn't work as planned. And there's something just ironic and hilarious about that, I find.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And I'm sure that listeners of the podcast know about my story. My personal experience on that last night is that I believe I was on the last ride that all the sharks worked.
Okay,
because
awesome.
right before we got loaded off, the ride broke down, and we were stuck for like 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
At least 10 minutes. And what I heard after that is all the other rides after our ride broke down, that shark never popped back out. So if I was fortunate to see beyond the ride where that kill shark came up one last time, I was very fortunate for that.
Yeah.
So
Very
cool.
fortunate. I'm jealous.
I was just wondering, did we ever go through and there was missing sharks?
Not that I can remember.
No. I remember there was a time there was the gas lighting up, but that was when the price of gas was really extortionate, and it was
Because they
boiling.
closed it down for a bit, didn't they? During like the high gas prices,
Yeah,
it was
but I don't
closed for about
remember
like it was
ever being
only
missing
open
sharks.
seasonally. But no, I don't remember.
I was just thinking about that.
And when they finally brought it back after the gas price problem, the fire effects were decreased
Yeah,
in intensity and duration, which didn't ruin the middle of the ride, but
No.
it did lessen the impact of it.
yeah. I suppose for those of us that know what it should have been, yeah.
Is that why sometimes the Spider-Man fire doesn't work?
I mean, possibly.
I never even considered that.
I've never had it not work.
Really? We've had it not work quite often, actually.
Who knows?
All right.
Just so long as the heater works, just so long as you feel it, I can
Yes.
imagine it. If I don't have to see it. I just
Yeah.
need that little onboard heater to shoot the blast of heat, and I'm good.
Yes.
Oh, it's Chris's favorite part of the ride, though. So she points it out, and when it doesn't work, she's really bummed.
Aw.
I remember going on it in our trip in 2009 when it was freezing one day, and we went on it just to get warm.
that side.
Yeah,
Oh, the Mummy's the best ride for that.
it is.
for
You're
sure.
right.
Yeah, getting stuck under that.
Yeah. Which Chris
Oh,
would
yeah.
go, I've been stuck under that for about 20 minutes.
Oh God, that sounds miserable.
Yes.
Ugh.
Ah.
All right. Well, I guess we survived this latest shark attack.
Yes, we did it. Okay, hang on, everyone. We should be okay. Look, we're going to try and get off at that old fishing dock. We'll unload one row at a time. Watch that high voltage barge. Please stay seated with your arms inside the boat. And I think we can... Oh, no. Look. Oh, it tried to bite us, but has bitten that electrical cable instead. Take this. Eat this. Woo! Boy, that thing is disgusting. Hey, we really roasted him.
Amity 6, what was that? Where the heck are you?
This is McNeil. We're all right.
Base, this is Amity 6. We have Thomas and the Chief. Call off the Marines. We are coming home. Woo! Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, I really want to thank you for your incredible bravery out there today. But hey, you know, we probably shouldn't tell anyone what went on there. I mean, if word of this little fish episode were to leak out, that would be it for Captain Chris and all of the other businesses around here. So just keep it to yourselves, okay? After all, we did get him, didn't we?
Yes.
Yay! Woo! All right, that was fun, guys. Thank you so much, Dustin and Thomas, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
So
I
much
wasn't
fun.
going to do this, and I just thought, you know what? 10 years of Jaws being closed is too big to let go by. And so I just thought, we have to do it. We have to pay homage to, like I said, what I think is probably the one of the most iconic Universal Orlando attractions ever. And I hope it still lives in people's memories for a long time to come.
For sure.
Dustin, of course, people who haven't been listening to the show for longer than 3 years should know that the reason you are on here is because you literally wrote the book on the attraction. So please plug your book so people can go and find it if they haven't already.
Yeah, if anyone listening is a fan of the Jaws ride like I am, check out a book that I wrote several years ago. It's called Adventures in Amity, Tales from the Jaws Ride. You can find it on Amazon. It's in paperback, Kindle, and Audible audiobook. It's got over 30 interviews with the people that helped create, design, build, maintain, and spiel the Jaws ride. It's got rare photos of the construction of both versions of the rides, a lot of rare stuff that's never been told or shared before. And so if you love seeing, you know, how the sausage is made and how the ride was put together, you might enjoy the book. Adventures in Amity, Tales from the Jaws Ride.
It is an awesome book.
Yes, sounds awesome. All right, we're going to wrap up the show with a Universal Is, and Thomas and Dustin have accepted our invitation to supply this week's. But of course, if you would like to get involved, just let us know what you think Universal is in 3 words or less, and send them to podcast@uuopodcast.com or however you want to get them to us. But for now, Thomas, Dustin, Universal is
Better with Jaws.
Dustin?
Still the greatest.
Yes.
Both awesome sentiments. Catch you next week, guys.
Guess that wraps things up for another unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. You guys did all right. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Pinterest, keyword UUO Podcast. Listen and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere podcasts are found. You can find our blog at uuopodcast.com. Send us your spews, which Lou gets your poo recordings, questions, or comments to podcast@uuopodcast.com. Check out our friends, the Theme Park Duo, and our awesome sponsors, Mouse and Muggle Travel Company. So, until next time, don't give up your day job. Say cheese. See you later.